The tension didn't erupt with shouting or slammed doors. It arrived quietly, spreading across the set until everyone could feel it. Crew members sensed it before they could explain it, a subtle shift in energy when Jamie Dornan and Sam Heughan were in the same space. What was supposed to be a high-profile collaboration suddenly felt like a waiting room before something went wrong. At first, the project looked like a dream pairing. Two established stars, two strong fanbases, and a production designed to showcase both of them at equal weight. Early rehearsals were professional, even friendly, with mutual respect on the surface. But beneath that calm, differences began to surface almost immediately. Jamie's approach was precise and controlled. He arrived prepared, focused on structure, blocking, and consistency. Sam, by contrast, worked more instinctively, adjusting in the moment and pushing for emotional freedom. Neither approach was wrong, but neither was willing to bend easily. The first signs of friction appeared during script discussions. Small suggestions turned into firm opinions about pacing, emphasis, and character dominance within scenes. What began as creative debate slowly took on a competitive edge. Crew members noticed that decisions once made quickly now required careful navigation. As filming progressed, the power dynamic became harder to ignore. Both actors carried influence, not just because of their roles, but because of their status. When Jamie spoke, departments listened. When Sam pushed back, the room shifted. Each adjustment felt like a test of authority rather than collaboration. No one raised their voice, but conversations shortened. Notes were delivered indirectly. Directors found themselves mediating instead of guiding. The set remained functional, yet emotionally divided, with people instinctively choosing where to stand and when to speak. The breaking point, according to those present, came during a key scene meant to define the relationship between their characters. Jamie argued for restraint, insisting the moment needed control to land properly. Sam pushed for intensity, believing the scene demanded emotional dominance. The disagreement stalled production for nearly an hour. What made the moment explosive wasn't the argument itself, but what it represented. This wasn't about a single scene anymore. It was about who set the tone, who shaped the story, and whose vision would lead. The silence afterward felt heavier than any raised voice could have. From that day on, interactions changed. Eye contact became brief. Conversations went through intermediaries. Blocking was adjusted to minimize overlap. These were subtle choices, but they spoke volumes to anyone paying attention. Crew members began describing the set as divided into invisible territories. Jamie's scenes ran with clockwork efficiency. Sam's brought raw energy but required flexibility. Balancing both without escalating tension became a daily challenge for production. Rumors started circulating quietly, never reaching official channels but spreading fast among insiders. Some framed it as ego, others as creative incompatibility. A few suggested it was inevitable when two strong personalities were asked to share control without a clear hierarchy. Publicly, everything looked fine. Smiles were exchanged when cameras appeared. Interviews remained respectful and vague. But off-camera, the atmosphere told a different story, one of guarded professionalism masking an unresolved struggle for influence. By the time the schedule moved forward again, everyone knew the truth, even if no one said it out loud. This was no longer just a collaboration under pressure. It had become a silent power struggle, and the consequences were only beginning to surface. Once the tension settled into routine, it became clear that the clash was no longer about a single disagreement. It was about control, influence, and whose presence shaped the atmosphere on set. Jamie Dornan and Sam Heughan continued to work professionally, but the space between them felt deliberate. Every interaction was measured, every decision quietly strategic. Production insiders described a noticeable shift in leadership dynamics. Direction that once flowed smoothly now required careful framing to avoid triggering resistance. Notes were filtered, conversations staggered, and group discussions replaced with one-on-one meetings. The goal was no longer creative synergy, but containment. What complicated the situation further was how differently each actor handled power. Jamie leaned into discipline and structure, trusting preparation over spontaneity. Sam relied on presence and momentum, drawing energy from emotional dominance in the moment. These philosophies collided repeatedly, even when no words were exchanged. The crew felt the pressure immediately. Departments learned to anticipate which approach would be favored depending on who was leading a scene. Small adjustments became political choices. A lighting change or camera angle suddenly felt like a vote rather than a technical decision. As days passed, the tension began to affect morale. Crew members spoke more quietly, avoided unnecessary interaction, and waited for cues that never fully arrived. No one wanted to be seen aligning too closely with one side. Neutrality became a survival skill. Behind the scenes, producers reportedly stepped in to reassert balance. Schedules were adjusted to limit overlap. Scenes were restructured to reduce direct confrontation. These changes kept filming on track, but they didn't erase the underlying conflict. They merely buried it. Public appearances told a different story. When promotional obligations arose, both men presented a united front. Smiles were exchanged, compliments offered, and questions deflected with polished answers. To audiences, it looked like mutual respect. To those who had witnessed the set, it felt like a performance within a performance. Fans, however, began to notice inconsistencies. Joint photos showed less interaction than expected. Interviews revealed subtle shifts in tone. Body language analysts dissected moments that seemed insignificant but felt loaded in context. Speculation grew, fueled by silence rather than confirmation. What made the drama so compelling was the absence of resolution. There was no explosive fallout, no dramatic exit, no official statement. The conflict remained suspended, unresolved, and therefore endlessly interpretable. Power struggles rarely announce themselves, they linger. Insiders suggested that neither Jamie nor Sam viewed the situation as personal. It was about territory, influence, and creative ownership. When two leading figures occupy the same space without clear boundaries, friction becomes inevitable. Respect doesn't always prevent conflict, sometimes it intensifies it. By the time filming wrapped, the tension had softened but never disappeared. Professional distance replaced confrontation. Each actor left with their reputation intact, but the experience left a mark. Those involved understood they had witnessed more than a creative disagreement. The real impact emerged afterward. Industry conversations quietly referenced the project as a cautionary tale. Not because of failure, but because of what happens when power is shared without clarity. The lesson wasn't about ego, but about structure. In the end, the drama didn't explode in public the way rumors predicted. It unfolded slowly, reshaping relationships and workflows behind closed doors. The set returned to normal, but the memory of that tension remained. What audiences saw was a finished product. What insiders remembered was a silent battle for control that never needed words. And sometimes, those are the conflicts that leave the deepest impression.